Hi, welcome back to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We've been off for a couple of weeks because of spring sports, but we're back bringing you a full summer of hopefully good information and a whole bunch about sailing. This week we have a tale of intercollegiate sail racing in Lake Erie from North Cape Yacht Club, and I think you're going to find the story pretty intriguing. We had a chance to spend some time with Craig Mueller, who decided with Dar Burgone to put together a intercollegiate offshore sailing race. 10 universities showed up this past weekend, and we're going to get a chance to talk to Ian McSwain from the University of Toledo, who is the winning skipper, and also get a chance to talk to Cole Warner from Georgia Tech. Teams came from far away as Rhode Island, Georgia. Didn't get quite to Florida, but we got quite a few teams from a lot of places. The story of the way the race came off is really pretty intriguing, and I think if you listen, you'll find out some pretty cool information. Intercollegiate offshore racing isn't typically what these colleges do. Most of them sail 420s in regular sort of small boat competition, but the popularity is gaining, especially locally, since the University of Toledo last year had a very successful campaign at the end of the season out on the Atlantic Ocean. So we're going to bring all those folks to you and a whole bunch of other information. So stay tuned, and we'll be back in a minute. Hi, welcome back to an interesting section. We have a chance to talk to Craig Mueller, who is a member of the North Cape Yacht Club. We're going to tell you a tale of intercollegiate sail racing, offshore sail racing. And Craig, the only way I can kind of get at this story is to sort of start at the beginning. You just completed one of the best intercollegiate offshore races in a while, and it's self-funded. It's not necessarily sanctioned. It's sanctioned, but I want to go through this so that I don't miss the story, because I think this is truly unique. And I want to start with, you had the race this past weekend. You had kind of explain what the race was, and then we'll get into the history of it kind of quick. And thanks for coming aboard. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. So the Intercollegiate Offshore Regatta series that currently exists has been around for quite a while. Larchmont was first with the original IOR. And then Chicago decided they would like to get in on it. And they started one quite a few years ago. And they've been pretty steady with their T10 fleet growing into the 105 fleet, and now looking to expand even more. Something that has become more prominent inside of collegiate sailing is that there is a lack of transition from college sailing to post-grad. You know, a lot of these kids go out every other day and they'll practice with their college teams, and then when they're lucky over the summer, they'll go race on big boats, but some of them don't get the opportunity. And so to be able to put on an event that allows college sailors the opportunity to learn big boat sailing and get out there and experience it and show them there is more after college, it's not just dinghies, was something that we wanted to look forward to. And so I was approached by JJ, who you interviewed from Toledo, after their win at the Chicago event. And he said, I really think we should try to do this. And so if it wasn't for him giving me that little kick in gear, I wouldn't have thought about it. But that night I actually had mocked up the SIs, the NOR, and a draft plan for the event in 3 hours.
All right, now let me back up. Last year at the end of the season, we get a chance to come down to North Cape to interview the University of Toledo sailing team, who had a phenomenal race out on the East Coast. I think top 5, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yep.
Great interview. And so that spurned, not only did it spurn donations for what essentially is a club team at UT, it also spurned some activity, because I think they ended up actually recruiting some more sailors than they typically had in their program. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So let's start with the acronym for this race.
Yes. So the title of the race is the Lake Erie Intercollegiate Offshore Regatta, otherwise abbreviated as LEIOR.
And the follow-up to this, which is the thing that boggles my mind, this is literally a self-funded program by some sponsors, some people sort of reaching in their pocket to come up with money, you, and then obviously Dar Burgoyne, who is a former first lady there at the club, because her husband was former Commodore. Am I right so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was all self-sufficient. We brought in, thankfully we had one larger donation that remains unnamed, but the rest of our donations came in from one or two local businesses that are either their owners and or employees there are at North Cape. And then we had a few that came in from our sailors' kids for UT and their parents donating. And then we had a few others that just around the area from North Cape to Monroe said, we need this. We need more of this. We need to do more promotion around the Western Basin. In terms of the Western Basin, there's nothing like this event.
Okay.
Other than Detroit hosting the larger dinghies at Detroit Yacht Club.
Should point out that most of NCAA intercollegiate racing is either 420s, 470s, smaller type boats, obviously smaller crews, and getting the opportunity to be, in a offshore regatta, there's just not that many. And big boat experience for kids who are trying to make a living at pros as they graduate, those opportunities are slim. And if you look at like even the Michigan Great Lake races, if you look at a lot of those winning boats, a lot of those guys come from a lot of places that don't speak English the way we do. Australia, New Zealand, lots of pros from all over the place. Now we got some unbelievable racers here. So now you get this race. Can I ask, is this a 5-figure kind of needy to raise money, or is it less than that to run a race like this?
I would put it, in order to grow, I would say the hopeful would be 5. But just getting it off the ground, we went as close to bare bone as possible while making sure it was still a fun event, a big event, and that the kids were having fun. And so this year we were able to keep it a little under a 5-figure and come out on top. But it's all in all, money in terms of this event is no object. It's more of a matter of making sure that the kids are given the opportunities they should be given. And so whatever it takes, it has to happen.
How many hours do you have into this race? I'm just curious, just in terms of man hours for you. Hundreds?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put it in the hundreds.
All right.
It was stressful, but it was worth it.
No, and I want to cover this because I think it's really interesting. We'll talk about the race, obviously, and after we're done talking, we're going to have a chance to meet and talk with both the UT skipper and the eventual winner. I think Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So UT won the overall, both in class and the overall event. Georgia Tech, they won the offshore race that occurred on Sunday.
So you had teams from all over the East Coast.
Yeah, so we had a college team that sailed under Team USA, which comprised of mostly kids from the upper East Coast. We had Georgia Tech, we had Ohio State, Miami of Ohio, Cleveland State, Toledo, Michigan State, Indiana, and a few others. So we had 10 teams altogether. And sorry, I'm still kind of brain fogged from the weekend. But all in all, we had interest from schools all across the nation. We had service academies telling us if it wasn't for the timing and it wasn't so soon, because we were rushing to get it off the ground, that they would try to make it out. So, we had interest from San Diego State originally, Drexel. The Navy has given us some feedback. Army has given us some feedback. Coast Guard's given feedback. We struggle with some of the southern schools like Florida and that, but all in all, I was very happy with the feedback that we did receive. And so we're looking to address some changes in terms of date and or timing of the event and giving everybody more time to plan.
Now, all these crews were using boats locally that donated locally. Am I correct?
Yes. So all of the boats for the event are donated by their owners. A majority of them this year came directly out of North Cape. We did have 6 that were originally going to be transported in, and then due to some teams dropping and some injuries with owners and or boats just not being fully prepared in time, we made a few changes around. And so, yep, everything's brought in directly from owners willing to do it. The owners are on board for safety reasons and for insurance purposes, making sure that their boats are fully together and ready to go. And then the kids take over. The owner's on board to give some advice and some knowledge.
Explain, if I'm an owner and I want to get involved in this, explain what my liabilities might be, because I'm thinking that I'm not going to turn my 35-foot boat over to a bunch of college kids without, some, just talk briefly about the safety aspect. And if something breaks, who's responsible?
So in terms of your boat, if you are the owner, you are responsible for your boat, and that's it. The kids are responsible for themselves. So a prime example of this, and all in good spirits in the end, we had a big squall come through on Saturday.
Right.
And we had 2 mainsails rip. Both owners were like, it is what it is. It happens. It's okay.
Right.
The one thing that we ask when boats are donated is when you come out, make sure your boat's ready. If you were going to go race it yourself with your crew tomorrow, make sure you're ready.
Okay.
Now, I'm not asking, and we're not asking as an organization to provide North Americans levels of quality of sales.
Right.
But if you want to prevent damage from happening and give your kids the best opportunity to do well, bring your mid-tier. Don't bring the stuff that's been sitting on the shelf for 15 years because, it started to delaminate and didn't want to use it anymore.
I asked the question because the charitable gift that you're getting from the owners of those boats is pretty terrific. And if you had to man them like you might at Annapolis, where it's obviously they ran the offshores last year, but they're using the Naval Academy's boats, who are obviously purchased by the U.S. government. So it's there's no comparison. This is just a pure labor of love to give kids an opportunity. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's extremely fair. And so one of the things we did after the event is we talked to a few of our owners, and I had a few even come up to me and they go, I'm doing it again next year. Okay. I'm in, and I want the same team. I loved it. I had a blast. Even with the bad weather on Saturday, I, in a heartbeat, would do this all over again.
How do you determine how do you determine one class, but more importantly, how do you determine boats that might not necessarily be handicapped in a way, or are you using handicaps?
Yeah, so we're actually just using local perf ratings. So something that we did a little different than the current series that exists is, along with any big boat racing on Lake Erie and along other places, is you run corrected times.
Right.
So yeah, you may have a wide breadth of boats available to you, ranging from the low double digits to the high triple digits, and so we break it up like you would any other race. Okay. Let's say locally we're looking at the mills. Everybody's in the same circle. It's just you're going to break out in classes.
Okay.
But this gives the teams the opportunity, even if they're on a deemed slower boat, they could go out there and get around the same exact course or same exact leeward course faster than an A boat. Then in technicality, they should be winning.
Right.
Overall.
Well, like any other handicap race. Like any other handicap race. It makes the playing field equal. I get that.
And so the way that some of the other, the other 2 organizations do it is they typically run a low point system. So if I'm in perf A and I get all 1s and a 2 in my last race, but a perf B boat gets straight bullets, they technically win. But if that perf B boat didn't in technicality go faster around the course than you, then should they be allowed to win the overall? Yes, they sailed in their class better than you, but did they sail the course better than you? And so that's something that we kind of treaded on the fine line of, in class, we'll still run a low point system, but overall it's going to be based off of corrected times. And so we put in, course length, win range ratings, and then you do your perf TOD, and that way, a C boat could in technicality win the entire thing. If they push that boat that hard, they could do it. And we were actually very close to it this past weekend, having a C boat and a B boat beat all but one A boat.
Wow.
So, it's something that we looked at, and so we did have a few questions from a few sailors who weren't used to that. And I said, the biggest thing that we're trying to do here is give you as close to actual racing for big boats outside of college that you could ever get without making it overly serious. And so, I've been to IOR. I never had the opportunity to go to GLIOR, but I've heard great things about that event. I really liked IOR. And so we kind of meshed the two events and then kind of made it our own on top of it. And so, one of the things that we talked about was the low point system is a great thing. And in technicality, if I sailed better in Bs, then yes, I potentially could be the better team. But if I didn't get around that course faster than the A boat, I don't find it fair that I should be deemed the overall winner.
Now, your racing typically is, you had two different races. You had an offshore race and then explain what you guys did that was a little bit different than is what's typically run in these kinds of events.
Yeah, so typically for these events, they're running a windward leeward course. And so what we did is Saturday, we ran as many windward leewards as possible. Unfortunately, after the squall came through, we had very little wind. So they were only able to get two off. They got the third one started and it was abandoned due to time elapsed before hitting the first mark, which is unfortunate. And as all sailing goes, the second everybody got into the docks, the wind filled in.
Right.
And it sucks to see it, but that's exactly how it goes. You'll go out there and you'll drift around for 4 hours and you'll come in and be angry that there was no wind. And then you look over and there's more. So the thing that we did differently was on Sunday, we ran an offshore race, a true offshore race. So we sent them out to, I believe it was R2 or R6 up in Monroe, all the way down to the Toledo Lighthouse and then back home to North Cape. And that way it gave the students and all of the teams the opportunity to really show off their skills. And so that was one thing that I wanted to focus on was windward leewards are overly technical and they're great. They're a great way to learn. They're a great way to push yourself, to force yourself to learn the boat because it's fast paced, it's quick. And then doing an offshore race, you really start putting your skills to the test because it's not how quick can I do something? It's how quick can I think on my toes to get out of a bad situation when you're pinned next to another boat.
What's the distance on that offshore race? How far? Ballpark?
We dropped it significantly because it was slated to be lighter air. It was 17.9 nautical miles.
What kind of wind?
Started at 10 a.m. and we're done by 12:30.
What kind of wind? 10, 12?
It was looking at roughly, I believe it was 12. I had a couple teams said that they had a few spots where it picked up to like the upper teens, low 20s. So it was pretty sustained. And then it was coming out of, I believe, the southwest. So it gave them a nice downwind start with a beat and a nice reach.
Just curious if some of the reactions you got from some of the racers. What was the thoughts and conversation on the offshore on Sunday?
So I didn't get the opportunity to talk to a whole lot of them, but I did talk to a few, and some of the feedback that I did receive was actually really good. They enjoyed the offshore race. It was challenging, and I know, like I talked to some of the college team that came out from the Upper East Coast, and they had a blast. They said, it was fun. It gave us an opportunity to really challenge ourselves to push the boat harder to make sure that we could either keep up or beat whoever we needed to beat. And so it challenged them in a way that doesn't always get to happen inside of college sailing.
Yeah, that's cool. I've got lots of pictures. As you're watching through this, you'll be able to see some of the pictures from the kids racing. You also gave a steering wheel away, I think, as first prize. Am I correct?
Yes, we did. So
I've seen flags. I've not seen anybody getting a steering wheel. Talk about that.
So For our overall awards, we did acrylic sailboats. Everybody got a medal and a clear glass. And then in-class awards were just medals. And then we had 3 specialty trophies. We had the Leslie Hill Memorial Trophy for North Cape. Leslie was a huge supporter of all scholastic sailing. And so I saw it really fit to approach her daughter, who's a good friend of mine, and say, I would like to name a trophy after your mom for the event. And so that became our perpetual overall.
Okay.
And then we had the Perf Lake Erie distance offshore race champion. So whoever won the overall for the offshore race, and only the offshore race, was able to take home, well, not take home, but they were able to get a trophy for that. And then the steering wheel was for the Tim Tiny Miller Trophy. He was a navigator inside of the Storm Trysail, group, and he was one of the top navigators. He also ran bow, and his name became Tiny Tim Miller for a reason. He may have been, 6'7" and 350 pounds, but he was still pretty darn light on his feet, and so he got the nickname for it. And so I asked JJ, who is an ex-UT sailor and recently graduated. I asked him if he'd be interested in doing a trophy for him, and he said yes. And so his thought was an homage of his, I guess would be great uncle, would be to give away a steering wheel as a thank you from the back of the boat to the front of the boat, because that first place bowman, they're pushing their luck and they're pushing everything. And so there's a good side of it, which is, it's a thankless position at times, and bow can be really rough. And so that was their thank you to that. And then there's the ongoing joke of the bow always knows better than the back of the boat. And so as a thank you for being such a royal pain and being a front seat driver, here's the wheel. Show me what you got. So it was cool.
All I could think of was, every time you get any award for any sport, you think of the Super Bowl, you give a ring, you give jewelry out for maybe the most macho sport going, which is football, right? Doesn't always seem to make sense. But I look at that wheel and I'm thinking it was actually bigger than mine. If we would have won that, I'd probably ended up using it. So it's some practicality too. So I thought that was kind of cool.
So that one will actually stay perpetual. So that'll stay with us. Well, luckily enough, but the team that won overall and ended up, their bowman that ended up winning it was Toledo. It will be going down to Florida to get refinished and get the plaques put on it, and then it'll come back and it'll actually stay at North Cape. If a local team wins that trophy, they would be allowed to take it with them and bring it back next year. So not a whole lot of local teams. So if the local teams want a nice piece of hardware to hold on to for a year or so, they should really come out.
That's cool. Tradition is important in any sport, and that just sort of brings full circle. Listen, I just think we should give obviously great credit to you and great credit to Darb Burgoyne. She obviously was involved in this, and I won't call it the inaugural event, because 2017 you ran a race. This is actually the second race that's been run.
So in 2017, they started it at Cleveland, out in Cleveland. I believe it was at Edgewater and T10s. And then unfortunately, just due to time constraints and everybody getting busy, it ended up not continuing. But we're still deeming it the inaugural, mainly because the location changed, the people who volunteered and are running it changed. So it overall is a completely different event under the same title. So, Delaney Eimbler, who helped run the last one, she was, always at my back, tapping my shoulder, like, are you doing it? Are you doing it? And I was like, yep, we're getting it done. So I actually have to follow up with her because she wants an update.
As an old journalist, you can't have they always talk about the first annual. Well, you can't have an annual and it can't be first. You can be first or you can be annual, but you can't be both. Sure. So that's why inaugural makes that word out, it turns out that it's really terrific. Hopefully we get a chance to visit with both of the UT and the Georgia Tech Sailor. I'll be making those phone calls in a couple of seconds, but I appreciate your time. And this has been a really cool little story to
sort of promote it. And next year we get out and cover it. So hopefully at the end of this, you get a chance to see some of the happy faces in the pictures that were posted. And Craig, thanks for doing the race. And wow, what a really cool thing.
Yeah, Dara and I had a lot of fun, and actually we stood up there at the podium after finishing making our doing our awards, and I kind of looked at her and I put the mic down and I was like, well, are we doing it again? And she goes, I don't know, are we doing it again? I was like, I'm awful tired. She goes, well, are we? I was like, I guess so. And so we announced it. But yeah, Dara and I are looking very much forward to running it again. We're awfully, gonna do things a little bit differently, and definitely grab more people from the beginning, so it's not just her and I trying to run it. But all in all, I wouldn't have been able to do it without her, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without all of our volunteers and boat owners. I mean, we had an uncanny amount of support, and so I'm pretty happy with it.
Craig, again, thank you, and hopefully our paths will cross this. We're hopefully going to get down to North Cape this summer, and maybe we can have a cold refreshment, as they say.
Yes.
Thanks for all the work, man. Congratulations. Welcome back. We just got a chance talking with the administrators of the Lake Erie Intercollegiate race that went off this past weekend. We're talking with Ian McSweeney and Cole Warner, who are representatives of both University of Toledo and Georgia Tech. You guys had a great background. That's perfect to pop up. I like that a lot. That was right at the race. That's perfect. First of all, guys, talk a little bit about the race, and we're going to get into sort of intercollegiate racing and what it does and what it means. And let's start with you. You guys, the University of Toledo had some success last year on some East Coast races, and obviously you won this one. But talk a little bit about the race.
Yeah. So to start out, our team really can't really practice. We don't really have the money or the time to. So we don't own any boats, so we rely on practicing with the boats of team members. So we didn't get the chance to practice this year. So this regatta, they'd won the one in Chicago prior last year. I wasn't here last semester when they won that. But especially with this being our home regatta, we went in with some pretty high confidence. Knowing the area, it's a very tricky area to sail. So, we were able to go in. I think we mesh very, very well as a team. We sail really, really well together. Typically, we don't raise our voices. So then by the end of the day, nobody wants to kill each other. And I think that helped us out a lot. Our crew work is great. We didn't really have any big mistakes that really stuck out that put us behind or anything, except for being a minute and a half late to the start for race 2.
Cole, you're coming all the way up from Georgia Tech, so that's a long way to come all the way up to Cleveland, up to Toledo. Now, there was a windward leeward race, and there was also a distance race, which Georgia Tech won. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we won the distance race, and we were first in our fleet in the windward leeward.
Typically, these are not they're not spread over with distance races. They're usually windward leeward. Am I right on that?
Typically in college racing, yeah.
What's it like winning the distance race? Is it more fun than maybe the typical?
This distance race was really, really fun because it was a really close race, almost the entirety of the race. Like we were calling mark room at the first mark to several other boats. So that made it really exciting.
So you guys down at Georgia Tech, I'm assuming you guys are up in North Atlanta at Lake Lanier.
Yeah,
So you're typically small boat sailors, 420s, things of that nature.
typically.
Now you get to climb on a big boat.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
lots and lots of fun. Now we have a few big boat sailors that came with me. So Kyle, who's in my background here, is a J22 sailor. I'm a J24 sailor. Nick's done a bunch of sailing in San Francisco on even bigger stuff. And then Sam here is also J24 sailor. So not without big boat experience, but Hobie 33 is a lot bigger than a J24.
Okay. This race was first run in Cleveland, and obviously, Ian, you got your Cleveland hat on. This first run was run in 217, and it was successful the first year, and then they didn't have it. Somebody brings it back. In this case, they at North Cape, they bring the race back to Western Lake Erie. Talk a little bit about what it's like to sail in college at the club level, and at the same time, are there enough races? Could we be better at this? Because this race was undertaken by literally two people who wanted to just make sure there was a race for you guys, and that's a lot of work. Your thoughts?
Go ahead. Yeah, so Toledo sponsored the event. Craig, JJ, and Carly, who were on our board last year, all came up with the idea last fallish, winterish to host a regatta. We're unable to host dinghy regattas because we don't own dinghies. So our only shot was really to host a keelboat regatta and, rally all the members at North Cape. Hopefully, we could get enough boats together. And especially this past semester, I've spent a lot of time with Craig. I went up early this week and he was just, no sleep. I mean, he was going to sleep at like 2, waking up at 6 just to get ready for this regatta. It's a lot of work, but yeah.
We're talking about Craig Mueller, who is the more or less the administrator and organizer of this. Dar Burgoyne, who is also one of the other sort of organizers. Part of their job was to raise enough money to make sure that it ran. And so, like any other sport, it takes a bit of cash, from that standpoint. Cole, here's the question I've got. You're coming from, it's a little different for Toledo, but you're coming from Georgia. You're getting on a complete stranger's boat that probably is worth a fair amount of money. What do you guys have conversations? I'm sure the owners who are on the boat for safety reasons and for liability, you guys are getting on this owner's boat. Now, it can go one of two ways, I would think. It can go south quickly because obviously maybe you've got a very persnickety owner or whatever the conditions might be. At the same time, you may end up having this long time, wonderful relationship because guys that give their boats up for college racing, I would think, are very charitable kind of individuals. So take me through your group's conversation. I'm assuming the guy all the way to my left in that picture is the guy who owns that boat. Am I correct?
No, the owner wasn't with us. So
Okay.
The boat we sailed is Viva Las Vegas, which is 7711. And the owner is Steve Attard, who's a big guy in the Hobie 33 world. But he was not on the boat this weekend because he was in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So these are two of his crew who are
All right.
David and Raleigh Fisher. They
question,
were both amazing to sail.
So my question is, before you step on the boat, you guys obviously have to have conversations about, what you expect of yourselves to make sure that you're good, visitors, so to speak.
Exactly. So number one, just be polite. Number two thing we do is try to bring sailors that, at a minimum can control the boat and control any dangerous situation. And then kind of the other thing that we just do is if Raleigh or David said to do something, you just do it.
Okay.
Even if you feel that it may be wrong, you just listen to them.
They know the boat. They know the boat better, right?
Mhm.
Ian, do you recognize how charitable it is to get a boat from an owner like this? Is that something to compete? You don't have, again, your team doesn't have your own boats, and now people are turning over these, very expensive properties.
Yeah, we can't thank the North Cape community enough, really and truly. They were all stars this whole weekend, and they were great throughout the process. Really at no point were we like hunting down people, and there was no point where we were like, oh, we're not going to have enough boats or anything. People really came out and wanted to help out with the regatta, and were very gracious with providing their boats, and helped us put on this great event. But yeah, there were some expensive boats out there being sailed, no question. Even I'd be a little iffy, let some college people take it.
Well, the interesting part of having a conversation with Craig was he says that most of the people that donate their boats have already signed up next year to donate their boats because it's such a good experience being with you guys. So it can be a two-way love street. But the other part of that is, I know with my boat, it's, I'm very persnickety about how you deal with it. And if somebody gets on it and they put mud on it, or, this just normal kinds of things. Last couple questions. Cole, I'm going to start with you. How can we be better? How can we do a better job in the Midwest or even that West, the Southeast, with offshore sailing and intercollegiate club racing? Any thoughts on how we can expand this and do a better job? This is an example of where just somebody great success for Toledo last year on the East Coast, and now a couple people just decided to do that. But how do you grow the tent here? How do we make it bigger?
Well, I think the biggest thing that might change the game in college sailing is if more colleges start buying up some of the cheaper keelboats that are available that are one design classes. So, for example, Yinglings are a good one, J22s, J24s, Solings. Any boat that you can get for under $5,000 is a good one for colleges to start building a fleet for. There's, just for perspective, the dinghies that most colleges buy are $8,000 each. So it would actually be cheaper for them to start switching to offshore racing if they got into the right fleets. So that might be a game changer. And then the other thing I think is just to start showing up. So get more people involved at sailing at a young age and host more offshore events and go to more offshore events. Then you'll start building a lot of experience in the community at a young age, and that'll pay dividends pretty quickly, I think.
Ian?
Yeah, I completely agree. Hopefully it grows. I think especially with people who didn't really sail in high school or before they came to college, from what I've seen, I think they jump into the keel boats easiest because they're not getting wet as easily. The boat can't flip. It doesn't really seem as, close to the water, I guess. It's a lot smoother too. Hopefully, it keeps growing. There's not a whole lot of offshore events. And as a team that I'd say we specialize in offshore regattas, it's nice to see us be able to go to offshore regattas a lot more often than we were able to in the past.
Small boats translate to large boats. Again, it's not the other way around. You don't learn on large boats and then become great at small boats. But what do you pick up from a sailing perspective on the sort of the offshore stuff, being on bigger boats? Are you learning things this weekend? Yeah, Cole.
I think the biggest thing you pick up is teamwork.
Okay.
And I really liked my team. They were pretty amazing. But yeah, I think that's the biggest difference between small boat and big boat sailing for me.
Yeah. Either one of you guys cruise?
I normally am a spin trimmer, but this time I helmed.
Okay. But I'm saying, do you guys sail on bigger boats just to go cruise instead of race all the time?
Not really.
Okay. No, that's been a kind of a standard question with a lot of the racers that we've talked to from America's Cup guys down. Most guys that are racers don't have any interest in sitting on the back of the boat and drinking beer. I get that, but
Oh, I mean, we'll sit on the back of a boat and drink beer, but only during a race.
right. Last question. Talk briefly a little bit about North Cape as hosts.
They were a fantastic host, all around. Like, it's so. First of all, like, Great Lake sailing is, in my opinion, the best of sailing.
Why?
Which is a hot take for some. Well, I think it's pretty much ocean sailing with fresh water.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so that to me is the best part. And then, yeah, I mean, so I believe it was Dar organized, a whole 3 days of food for everybody coming, which was like way more than was ever promised in the NOR or anywhere. So very pleasant surprise there. And then I heard that Craig bought 5 kegs for the regatta, which is an incredible dedication to deliver. So,
Okay. Ian, any thoughts? It's your home. It's essentially your home port.
Yeah. I mean, once again, we can't thank Dar and Craig and all the volunteers enough. Dar's husband, Dwayne, for putting on some excellent races. All the North Cape members who, it seemed to me at least, just interacted with the kids and loved to interact with us. And I think I can speak for us when we say that we enjoyed interacting with them. They definitely got some interesting stories to tell. And as far as North Cape goes, it's kind of tough to find venues like this where, you have a beach right there and you can just watch all the racing from the beach. It's pretty open. There aren't too many tricks to the area unless the breeze is coming off the shore. But it's a beautiful venue. It was perfect for this event. And I hope they'll let us host again. It seems like they will. So.
Okay. Anything left on the schedule? Are you guys finished for the season? You guys done for the season?
I'll let Ian start.
Yeah, so we're pretty done for the season. We actually had people fly in from their summer internships or whatnot. So we're done for the season. Now it's into dinghy sailing for the summer.
Cole,
We're pretty much done for the season. We might have a team go to the RS21 North Americans. But that'll be it. So this was our 15th regatta this season and the 11th one that I went to. So a big season for the team, and glad that we got to end with, I'd say, one of the best run and most awesome regattas on the list.
That's cool. One of the things that talking to administrators that once this gets out, they've had conversations with the Naval Academy and Air Force and a variety of other schools. There were 12 schools competing, I think. Am I right on that?
10.
10. There could have easily been 20 according to what they're talking about for next year, and they've already signed up for it. So hopefully it'll be a great race. Guys, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate your time, and congratulations on having a good race, and hopefully you have a great summer.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I hope you enjoyed the show. This was a really fun, entertaining story about how sail races are put together from scratch. Craig Mueller deserves a great deal of credit. I wanted to thank Ian and Cole for coming on the show, and hopefully you got some insight to a different process. I know we've been off for a couple of weeks. We'll be back starting next week with a show, hopefully every week this summer, and we'll bring you the latest and greatest. For those guys in back, we appreciate your time. This is Greg Norman. We'll see you next time on Inside Great Lakes Sailing.